Welcome to our Update 8.5 SpongeBob Tower Defense tier list. In this video, we're breaking down the best and worst units in the game after the latest update. Whether you're looking for the strongest characters to dominate or just trying to figure out which ones to avoid, we've got you covered. This tier list is based on the most recent buffs, nerfs, and meta shifts in Update 8.5, so you'll know exactly which units to focus on. If you want to stay ahead in SpongeBob Tower Defense and always have the best strategies, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're constantly updating our tier lists and guides, so you'll never miss out on the latest tips to improve your game. Stick around until the end to see where your favorite units rank, and let us know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Now, let's get into the Update 8.5 SpongeBob Tower Defense tier list. F-tier SpongeBob TD units, explained in SpongeBob Tower Defense. Some units simply don't hold up when compared to stronger options. Whether it's due to low damage, poor utility, or being completely outclassed, these units are at the bottom of the tier list for Update 8.5. Let's go over why each one is ranked here. Baby Prunes, epic. Even though Baby Prunes is an epic unit, it's one of the worst in the game. You can get it from the shop, but I wouldn't recommend it. Its stats are underwhelming, and it doesn't offer any useful abilities to justify its rarity. There are far better epic units that can actually contribute to your team. Barnacle Boy, uncommon. Barnacle Boy is simply a subpar tower. While he might seem like a decent pick early on, his damage output and overall effectiveness are lacking. There are plenty of other units that perform better, making him replaceable and not worth upgrading. Gene Scallop, uncommon. There's really nothing special about Gene Scallop. His stats don't stand out, and he doesn't provide any unique abilities or strong utility. Because of this, he has no reason to be used over better towers. Bubble Base, uncommon. Bubble Base is another unit that falls short in every category. He doesn't do enough damage to be a viable attacker, and he doesn't have any supportive abilities to make up for it. Overall, he's just not worth using. All common units, SpongeBob, Squidward, Sandy, Gary, Patrick. Unlike some tower defense games where common units can have hidden potential, SpongeBob Tower Defense doesn't have any sleeper OP commons. Every single common unit is weak across the board. SpongeBob, a starter unit that doesn't scale well and becomes useless quickly. Squidward, no damage, no utility, no reason to use him. Sandy, another weak common unit that doesn't provide much in battle. Gary, lacks any viable damage or support abilities. Patrick, just like the others, Patrick falls into the trap of being too weak to compete with stronger units. Final thoughts on F-tier units. If you're serious about progressing in SpongeBob Tower Defense, you should avoid investing in these units. They won't get you far, and there are significantly better options at every rarity level. Whether you're looking for damage dealers or support towers, you'll find much stronger choices in the higher tiers. D-tier SpongeBob TD units, explained. D-tier units are slightly better than F-tier, but still not worth long-term investment. They might be okay as early game starters, but you'll want to replace them as soon as you get stronger units. Some of them have slight trading value, but they don't offer much in actual gameplay. Bubble Buddy, rare. Bubble Buddy is an okay starter unit with decent damage. While it can help in the early game, it quickly gets outclassed by better options. If you're new to the game, you can use it for a while, but don't waste resources upgrading it. Mrs. Puff, rare. Mrs. Puff doesn't bring anything special to the table. Like most D-tier units, she's just a stepping stone until you get something better. There's no real reason to keep her in your lineup once you start progressing. Lord Royal Highness, rare. Another rare unit that falls short in terms of effectiveness. Lord Royal Highness isn't completely useless, but compared to higher tier rares, he doesn't perform well. You'll want to replace him as soon as possible. Karate Sandy, rare. Karate Sandy is a decent starter unit, but there are much better options in higher tiers. However, it does have some value in trading, so you might be able to use it for that instead of keeping it in your team. Kevin C. Cucumber, rare. Kevin C. Cucumber is one of the weaker rares. His stats are below average compared to other units in his rarity, making him a poor choice for progression. If you get him, don't expect him to carry you far. Karate SpongeBob, uncommon. Similar to Karate Sandy, Karate SpongeBob is a decent early game unit, but you'll eventually want to replace him. He has some trading value, though, so he's slightly better than F-tier units in that regard. Jim, uncommon. Jim is better than most uncommons, which is why he's slightly higher in D tier. However, he still isn't strong enough to be a solid pick long term. He's more usable than other uncommons, but that's about it. Goofy Goober Waiter, uncommon. This is one of the better uncommon units, because it has slightly stronger stats than the rest. While it's still outclassed by higher rarity units, it can at least hold its own better than most other uncommons. Final thoughts on D-tier units. These units aren't completely terrible, but they aren't good either. They can be used early on if you don't have anything better, but the moment you get higher tier rares, epics, or legendaries, you should swap them out. If you're looking for strong units, check out the higher tiers instead. C-tier SpongeBob TD units. Explained. C-tier units are mid-tier, decent, but not outstanding. Some are good early game options, while others have limited usefulness due to being outclassed by stronger units. A few are solid for trading, but in terms of performance, they're just average. Larry the Lobster, epic. Larry is the best C-tier unit. He's similar to Plankton in that he's an all-around solid unit, but as you upgrade, he gets outclassed by better options. Still, for beginners, Larry is a good choice and can hold his own in the early game. Karen, epic. Regular Karen is placed slightly higher than Tango Karen, mainly because I personally don't like the Tango version. While she's not the best epic, she has some decent utility and is okay for early progression. Grandma Squarepants, rare. If you're looking for a single target damage dealer in the rare category, Grandma Squarepants is the best option. She's an excellent starter unit and can perform well in the early game, but later on, you'll want to replace her. Tango Karen, legendary, one of the worst legendaries in the game. The only reason people even have this unit is that it's given for free on the Chum Bucket map. If you have a better legendary or even a strong epic, you should replace Tango Karen as soon as possible. Princess Mindy, epic. There's really nothing special about Princess Mindy. She's a mid-tier epic with average stats and no standout abilities. Not the worst, but definitely not worth prioritizing. Texas Sandy, epic. Texas Sandy is a decent epic, mostly known for being a great trading unit. In terms of actual gameplay, she's mid-tier and gets outclassed by better epics and legendaries. Patty Obsessed Squidward, epic, popular for trading, but in terms of combat, this is one of the weakest epics in the game. If you're looking for value, he's better off as a trade item rather than a unit you actually use in battle. Squilliam Fancy Sun, rare. Squilliam is a solid starter pick because of his good AoE, area of effect, damage. While he isn't the best long-term, his ability to hit multiple enemies at once makes him useful early on. Old Man Jenkins, rare, a decent rare starter tower. He's good early game, but doesn't have the stats to keep up as you progress. Replace him once you have better units. Barnacle Boy Patrick, uncommon, one of the best uncommons in the game. Thanks to his raw damage, he's an excellent unit for beginners, especially for grinding hard mode early on. While he won't hold up against stronger epics and legendaries, he's a great pick for those just starting out. Final thoughts on C-tier units. C-tier units are decent for beginners, but they don't have enough strength to be viable long-term. Some of them, like Larry and Squilliam, can be useful in the early game, while others, like Patty Obsessed Squidward, are mainly valuable for trading. If you have better options, you should upgrade as soon as possible. B-tier SpongeBob TD units. Explained. B-tier units are solid choices that can hold their own in battle. They aren't the best, but they have decent stats, good utility, or strong early game performance. Some of these units are outclassed by higher tier options, but they're still worth using if you don't have better replacements. Plankton, legendary. Plankton has good stats overall with no major weaknesses, making him a decent legendary. However, he falls short compared to mythics and most other legendaries once you start upgrading. If you don't have better options, he's usable, but you'll want to replace him with a top-tier unit when possible. Dirty Bubble, epic. Dirty Bubble is the best epic in the game when it comes to raw DPS, damage per second. If you're looking for an epic unit that can dish out damage efficiently, this is your go-to. However, as a non-legendary, it will eventually be replaced by stronger units. Mr. Krabs, legendary. Mr. Krabs has one major flaw: his attack speed is slow. While his damage ramps up over time, that slow rate of attack makes him a risky pick. I wouldn't recommend him for every comp, but if you have him and no better alternatives, he can still contribute. Miss Appear, legendary. Miss Appear specializes in line attacks, which can be useful in the right situations. She's not the best overall legendary, but when placed correctly, she can deal solid damage. Her strength depends on map positioning, so she's more situational than other top-tier units. Mermaid Man SpongeBob, epic. While he won't carry you in later waves, Mermaid Man SpongeBob is a strong epic for early game farming. He's a great starter unit and can help you progress until you unlock better legendaries. The Elastic Waistband, rare, one of the best rare units due to its excellent AoE, area of effect, damage. For a rare, it can hit multiple enemies effectively, making it a great choice in the early to mid game. Slappy Laszlo, rare. Slappy Laszlo is the best rare when it comes to utility. It can slow down enemies, making it a valuable support unit for your other towers. If you need a rare that provides crowd control, this is your best bet. Atomic Flounder, epic. What sets Atomic Flounder apart is its decent attack speed, which helps it perform better than most other epics. However, its overall DPS isn't high enough to justify placing it in A tier. A good unit, but not an essential one. Abominable Snow Mollusk, legendary. This unit isn't bad, but it's not worth grinding challenges for. It has better stats than most epics and lower rarity units, but compared to other legendaries, it falls short. If you're a completionist, you might want to collect it, but for gameplay purposes, there are better options. Pearl, rare. Pearl is an excellent starter unit that stands out among rares. If you're using rares in your team, Pearl is a competitive pick that can hold its own in B tier. Final thoughts on B tier units. These units are solid, but not the best. Some A tier SpongeBob TD units. Explained. A tier units are powerful and viable for most strategies. They're not quite at the top of the game like S tier units, but they can still carry you through most content. Many of these units are strong mythics that fall just short of S tier, while some legendaries manage to compete at this level due to their solid stats and utility. GG Rock SpongeBob, mythic. GG Rock SpongeBob is the best A tier unit, and in some cases, he can even be considered lower S tier. His damage and utility make him a strong pick, and if you don't have an S tier unit, he's one of the best mythics you can use. Hibernation Sandy, mythic. Right from the start, Hibernation Sandy has massive range, and once you upgrade her, her DPS becomes excellent. She's one of the safest mythic picks in A tier because she consistently performs well. The Quickster, mythic. The Quickster is controversial in the community. Some players dislike him because his flat damage isn't high, but his attack speed and AoE DPS more than make up for it. If you place him in the middle of a group of enemies, his raw DPS competes with some of the best units in the game. Dirty Dan, mythic. As a summon mythic, Dirty Dan is surprisingly good. He has great attack speed and solid damage, making him an excellent pick, especially for beginners looking for a strong summon unit. Mermaid Man, mythic. Mermaid Man has high raw damage, but the problem is that he only attacks a single target and doesn't offer any additional utility. This makes him weaker than other mythics, but he's still an A tier pick due to his raw power. King Neptune, mythic. King Neptune is a strong mythic, but he falls just short of S tier because he lacks the overwhelming power that top tier mythics have. Still, he's a great choice and will carry you far in the game. Man Ray, mythic. Man Ray suffers from a low attack speed, which holds him back compared to other mythics. He's still better than most legendaries, but he's outclassed by stronger mythics. If you get him, he's usable, but he's not the best. Flying Dutchman, legendary. A very useful A tier legendary that's great for beginners. He doesn't reach the level of mythics, but he's one of the strongest legendaries available and can help you progress before you get top tier mythics. Pinhead Larry, mythic. A newer mythic that unfortunately doesn't live up to expectations. Compared to other mythics, his stats are underwhelming, which makes him more of an A tier pick than an S tier powerhouse. He's better than most legendaries, but not a mythic you'd go out of your way to roll for. Doodlebob, legendary. One of the best legendaries in the game. Doodlebob has great damage, attack speed, and range, making him a solid A tier pick. If you're looking for a strong legendary, this is one of the best ones you can get. Final thoughts on A tier units. A tier units are incredibly strong, but not quite the best. Some mythics, like GG Rock SpongeBob and Hibernation Sandy. Alright, before we move on to the S tier units, let's take a quick moment. If you've made it this far into the video, that means you're serious about mastering SpongeBob Tower Defense, and I appreciate you sticking around. If you're enjoying the breakdown and finding this tier list helpful, make sure to leave a like. It really helps out the channel and lets me know you want more content like this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future tier lists, update breakdowns, and guides. We stay on top of every meta change and new update, so subscribing means you'll always be ahead of the game. Now, let's move on to the best of the best S-tier units. S-tier SpongeBob TD units. The best of the best S-tier units are the absolute strongest in the game. These towers define the meta, dominate both early and late game, and are must-haves for any serious player. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on these units, you'll have a much easier time clearing content, farming, and taking on tough challenges. Cyborg Plankton, Secret. With the recent buff, Cyborg Plankton is now the best tower in the game when it comes to raw stats. If you manage to get lucky and pull the secret unit, you're set for both damage and utility. Easily the top pick in the game right now. Smitty Warbanjagermanson, Mythic, one of the best mythics due to its insane splash damage. If you need a mythic that can hit multiple enemies hard, Smitty is a top-tier choice and an essential part of any AoE-based team. Captain Magma, Mythic. While some say Captain Magma is the best mythic, I wouldn't go that far, but he's still incredibly strong. He has some of the best focused AoE damage in the game, and if you can grab him from raids, he's absolutely worth it. Realistic Fish Head, Mythic, an excellent AoE tower that works extremely well in late-game teams. If you're building a meta comp, Realistic Fish Head should definitely be in your lineup. Krusty Krab, Rare, the only farm unit in the game, which automatically makes it S-tier. If you're playing Endless Mode or farming, Krusty Krab is a must-have. And if you're lucky enough to get a shiny Wumbo version, even better. Spongehenge, Secret. This unit had a rough start, but after recent fixes, it now deals insane damage. The buffs have turned Spongehenge into a powerhouse, making it a must-have for any player who gets their hands on it. Dream Gary, Secret. This unit is meta-defining because it stuns on every hit. Pair this with Handsome Squidward Slow, and you have one of the most broken CC, crowd control, strategies in the game. If you pull Dream Gary, you're set for high-level content. Squidward, Handsome, Legendary, the best legendary in the game. While Mythics deal more damage, Handsome Squidward's slow effect makes him an S-tier support unit. He's essential for controlling enemy movement and making your other units more effective. Final thoughts on S-tier units. These are the best units in the game right now. Whether it's Cyborg Plankton's raw power, Dream Gary's stun potential, or Handsome Squidward's essential slow debuff, these units are meta-defining and must-haves for high-level play. If you manage to get any of these, consider yourself lucky. That wraps up our Update 8.5 SpongeBob Tower Defense tier list. Let me know in the comments what you think. Also, should we do an updated ranking when the next patch drops? If so, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss it.